should take a moment. And we are live.
Good morning, everyone. I'm calling the first meeting of the Government Oversight Committee of the 130th Legislature to order. My name is Nate Libby. I proudly serve the people of Lewiston in the Maine State Senate. I also serve as Senate Chair of the Government Oversight Committee. I think this morning we'll begin with introductions of committee members, followed by introductions of staff members. And then I'd like to walk through some virtual committee meeting procedures, and then we will get into our business. So with that, I'd like to call on members to introduce themselves, and there will be no particular order except for how you appear on my screen. But I will start with my House co-chair, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, everyone. I'm Representative Genevieve McDonald. I represent House District 134, which is the offshore islands of Penobscot Bay and Western Frenchman's Bay. It's nice to see everybody.
And again, in no particular order, except for how it appears on my screen, Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Senator Libby. My name is Rick Bennett. I represent 13 towns in the heart of beautiful Western Maine in the Maine Senate. From Fryeburg, Greater Fryeburg area, the Lakes region in Cumberland County, and the Oxford Hills. And I want to say at the outset, I've got to leave for about 20 minutes in about a little before 10. So if I disappear at that hour, apologies, but we'll rejoin. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bennett. Representative Arata.
Good morning. My name is Amy Arata, and I represent House District 65, which includes New Gloucester and part of Poland.
Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Maggie O'Neill, and I am here representing House District 15, which is in Saco.
Senator Kime.
Since nobody knows what the order is on your screen, we never know when we're going to be called. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Kime, and I proudly represent Senate District 18, which is Northern Oxford County and 2 communities in Androscoggin.
Representative Stover.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator. My name is Holly Stover. I represent House District 89. That includes 6 coastal towns in Lincoln County. That includes Boothbay, Boothbay Harbor, Southport, Edgecombe, Westport Island, and part of South Bristol.
Senator Timberlake.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm Senator Timberlake. I represent Senate District 22, which is Turner, Green, Leeds, Wayne, Lisbon, Sabattis, Durham, Litchfield, and Wales. And good morning, everyone.
Representative Millett.
Good morning. I'm Sowen Millett. I represent House District 71, including the citizens of Norway, Sweden, Waterford, and West Paris. Good to see you all.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Donna Bailey. I represent Senate District 31, which is made up of the city of Saco and the towns of Old Orchard Beach, Hollis, Leamington, and part of Buxton.
Thank you, everyone. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to OPEGA's interim director, Matt Crook, who will introduce himself and will facilitate introductions of the staff.
Thank you, Senator Libby. Good morning, everyone. That is coming in. Again, my name is Matt Crook, and I'm currently serving as the acting director. But my normal job is that of principal analyst at OPEGA, where I've worked for the last 12 years. This director role and its responsibilities are not something that I'm accustomed to, and being in front of the committee is certainly outside of my comfort zone. But thankfully, it's only for a little longer. Yesterday, Lucia Nixon was appointed as the new OPEGA director, and she'll be starting February 22nd. She may be very familiar to you as she's been an OPLA analyst for many years. She's certainly familiar to us, or some of us in the office, as she worked with us for a couple of years as an analyst. We're very excited for Lucia to get here and transition into her new role. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to the staff at OPEGA. I'll start with your committee clerk, Etta Connors, who is without a camera or microphone, so she's popping in here. Etta is not only the committee clerk, but also our administrative assistant in OPEGA. She's the frontline contact for the office, and if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to her.
Thanks, guys.
I'll let the rest of the staff introduce themselves, starting with Amy, who has been a lifesaver in terms of all the background work necessary to make this electronic meeting happen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Gagne. I'm a senior analyst, and I have been with OPEGA for coming on 6 years. Nice to meet you all.
Good morning. I'm Ariel Ritchie. I am an analyst at OPEGA, and I have been here for 4 years.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Henderson. I'm a senior analyst with OPEGA. I joined the office in 2005 and left the office briefly in 2013 and came back in 2015.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Lee. I've been an analyst with OPEGA since 2016.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Farwell. I'm a senior analyst here at OPEGA, and like Jen, I started basically when the office started in 2005.
Good morning, I'm Carrie Hojera. I've been with OPEGA for about 5 years now, and I'm an analyst.
So from time to time, as we present specific reports, you may see and hear from any of us as either part of the presentation or just being present to serve as a resource if specific questions related to the work come up. Sometimes we may be asked to come before policy committees, so you may see us there also. So that's our staff.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to all of the OPEGA staff. As returning members to GOC know, all of the members that have experience with GOC, I think I can speak for them all, saying we're exceptionally proud of the OPEGA staff for their professionalism, their work ethic, the nonpartisan nature in which they conduct their work in their service to this committee. So we definitely look forward to working with you over the 2-week term, despite in a setting that's quite different than all of us are used to. So I think from here, I'd like to actually recognize Representative Dillingham, who joined us here just a moment ago. Representative Dillingham, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, I'm Representative Dillingham. I represent House District 72, which is comprised of the towns of Oxford, Otisfield, and Mechanic Falls in beautiful Western Maine, and I apologize for running a few minutes late this morning.
That's okay, Representative Dillingham. I do have to note, Western Maine is exceptionally well represented on this GOC committee. I'm very proud of that fact. Okay. Any questions before we dive in, or any comments? Seeing none. I would like to review some committee procedures that will help guide our work in this new virtual format. There are a number of points I want to hit on, so if you'll be patient with me as I run through this list. It's fairly extensive. I think some of it will be familiar to folks that have had a few weeks of experience in Zoom format for legislative committee hearings, and we can certainly provide this document to the members as a follow-up reference if that's helpful. So bear with me as I review these procedures. First, I just want to express my thanks to Matt Kruk, Amy Gagne, Representative McDonald, Etta Connors in particular, for all of the planning work that has gone into transitioning from our hybrid meeting system from the fall to this virtual system that we're now going to be employing for the upcoming foreseeable future. Firstly, this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and being recorded for posting to the Government Oversight Committee's YouTube channel. There are a couple of things to keep in mind related to this and future YouTube broadcasts. The YouTube feed, which is live, is turned on at or near the scheduled start time for this meeting and will remain on until the end of the day's work. If your camera and your microphone on your computer are turned on, whatever you say or do will be seen and heard, and that includes during any breaks that we may take as a committee. There are times when we do have very long meetings and we may need to break for a bit. Please note that when we do go on break, that live stream will continue. So it's important for you to take care of your screen and your camera and your mute button before you go on that break. Generally speaking, and I think everyone has been doing this, but please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking to cut down on background noise. For members who will be participating from the committee room, you will need to use your laptop or device microphone when speaking, as opposed to the traditional microphone that's affixed to your desks. Please keep the room microphones off during GOC meetings. The interim director, Matt, and Etta will participate via Zoom, but they will not be in the physical committee room. As many of you have requested and received, materials have been mailed to you, to your home. They're also distributed electronically to committee members before the meeting. They're also posted on the OPEGA website at the start of the meeting under GOC meetings. The director from time to time may share documents on the screen as necessary to help facilitate our discussion. Myself as chair, I'll recognize members and others to participate in our meetings. To be as accommodating as possible with respect to members' different familiarities and comfort level with Zoom, if you are interested in asking a question or making a comment during the course of our business, there are a couple of ways you can do that. You are welcome to actually raise your hand onto the screen. That will certainly get the attention of the co-chairs. You are also welcome to use the virtual hand raising function, which is part of the Zoom program. And you are also welcome to get our attention by using the chat feature. We'll do our best to call on members in the order in which they've indicated they want to speak. But given the nature of this format, we do ask for everyone's patience as we may not get it 100% correct all of the time. We will give our very best effort to recognize folks in the order that they've raised their hand. Speaking of the chat function, again, you're welcome to use the chat function to grab the attention of the chairs or the staff if you have a technical question, a technology question, or that sort of thing. But because the public doesn't see the information in that chat function, it should not be used for any substantive discussion or committee business. Please limit its use to either getting the attention of the chair, as I said, or help with technical issues. In addition to help the co-chairs facilitate the meeting, one of the OPEGA analysts will be monitoring the chat function and should be the first point of contact for any technical issues that you may be experiencing. They are able to respond to you via chat, and if they can assist you, they will contact the IT office on your behalf. I believe all committee members are familiar with this next one, but I just want to make sure it's absolutely clear that for voting, members must be participating in the Zoom meeting. The chairs must be able to both see you and hear you for that vote to be recorded in the meeting. If there is a technical issue with your video or something like that, if you have unstable or slow internet and you need to turn your video off to continue to participate in the meeting, if we take a vote in that circumstance, your vote will not be able to count in that circumstance. However, any votes that you were not able to cast during the meeting, it's my understanding that you can register your votes with your chamber's presiding officer. So if you're a member of the Senate, you can register your vote with the Senate President, and and the same in the House. For our voting, we'll be using a roll call vote that's called by the director and recorded by Etta. Let's see. A member who does not register a vote in person in committee may do so up to noon on the second business day after the time of the committee vote. Let's see. On a break. I think those are the main points I wanted to hit on committee procedures. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Senator Keim.
Thank you. I just had one. When we're having a public hearing or just doing any of our business, when the one thing that I find that I just like to clarify ahead of time is sometimes you're in the middle sort of a conversation. You have a question, there's an answer that gives a follow-up question. Would you prefer that we stop after every single one question and ask for permission to continue? Or if we're in a line of questioning, can we just continue without sort of that, pause and awkward turn the mic off, turn the mic back on kind of thing?
That's a great question, Senator Keim. Thank you for it. I'm open to the thoughts of members here. My initial reaction is if a member would like to engage in a line of questioning, if you'd like to note that when you've first raised your hand to speak, that will give the co-chairs a sense of what you're intending to do. I think probably that's the best way to proceed. There are times when you may just be interested in asking one question, and based on the response, that triggers perhaps a follow-up question or two. In our experience in the in-person format, it's usually the member asking the chair for leave to continue a question, and I think that's appropriate. I also recognize that with us being in a virtual setting and needing to mute and unmute ourselves, it may get a little clunky and awkward, but I think as co-chairs, we'd like to facilitate the conversation at the committee level, and that all members should feel they can ask the questions they need to ask at the time that's right. So I think we would pledge to work with you and make sure you are able to ask the questions you need to when you need to ask them. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I just want to be respectful of how you want to run the committee, and also make sure that we can sort of continue a line of thought. Thanks.
I'll go ahead and echo the senator's thoughts on that. I am someone myself who often has a follow-up question to a response, so I am more than happy to let people continue with until they receive all the information they would like to have.
Further comments or questions? Bear with me while I get oriented to the very detailed annotated agenda that does not follow the committee's agenda. So Matt, I believe the next item on our agenda is a summary of the November 20th, 2020 GOC meeting.
You'll find that behind tab 1. Typically, we don't walk through them at the meeting. We can ask whether, if these look fine as is, and if so, they'll be accepted as written to be posted to our website.
And for members who are new to the committee, our meetings are recorded, and Etta Connors takes the recording and drafts the minutes from that. So they are historically exceptionally detailed and accurate, and we typically accept them at the beginning of the meeting. So I don't believe a motion is necessary. If there's no objection, we'll accept the minutes and proceed to the next item. Okay. So the next item on our agenda, which really is the substance of our meeting, is an orientation to the Government Oversight Committee and OPEGA. And for this section, I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Thank you. So each of you should have received your committee notebooks, and these will be what you'll be working from each meeting. The agenda will always be on the front, and if you look at the leftmost column, you'll notice tabs listed. Information related to whatever we're discussing from the agenda will be located in the corresponding tab. In normal times, Etta would collect all the notebooks after a meeting, clean out the things you no longer need, add things for the next meeting. Under current conditions, we will email you materials or, if requested, provide hard copies, and we'll also provide instructions for updating the notebooks. Much of what we cover today will always be in the back of the notebooks as a reference material. And there's some other things in the back that we can reference as specific situations come up during the session. Each meeting's agenda will be set up just like this. The director and chairs work on developing the agenda, with the chairs ultimately approving the agenda. For today's agenda, I'm using the materials and approach from the 129th orientation when our former director, Danielle Fox, did the presenting. And right up front, I'd like to apologize in advance for all of the talking that I will be doing. Now, before I get into the bulk of the orientation, working with the committee hasn't historically been one of my responsibilities. And at some points, you may have questions that I don't know the answers to. And when that happens, I'll be sure to write those down and track down those answers for you. The focus for today's orientation will be understanding the GOC, OPEGA, and the process and work that is assigned to us directly by the GOC, so that you're ready for the next meeting, which will be picking up in the middle of that process. I finished up a PowerPoint presentation this morning, and we'll be using that. This was not part of your committee materials, but it mirrors many of the documents in your notebook, and we will post the PowerPoint online with our committee materials at the end of the meeting. I'll share that PowerPoint now. All right, does that look right? This is the first time I've shared it.
It does.
Okay. You may already be familiar with this, but the GOC is special in its makeup. The fact that you generally meet all year round, and you can submit legislation stemming from our work at any point. And there's an interesting relationship between the GOC and OPEGA in that you direct our work, you oversee the office budget, you evaluate the director, and generally just have authority over the office. But once we've been assigned scope questions, we are completely independent from external influences, and that includes the GOC. That's really by design, to ensure that our work is independent, objective, and free from influence. With that said, I guess let's go over the duties of the GOC and OPEGA. The first thing behind tab 2 is Title 3, Chapter 37, which is the statute that governs this committee, and this will always be in your notebooks. It outlines the committee's duties and responsibilities, as well as the roles and responsibilities of OPEGA and the OPEGA director. On the green sheet in tab 2, you'll find the GOC and OPEGA's mission statements. The committee is actually required by statute to adopt a mission statement. This one was adopted in 2013 and has been the mission statement of the GOC ever since. Because it's pretty important, I'll read that to you and all of the listeners at home. The mission of the Joint Legislative Government Oversight Committee is to oversee program evaluation and government accountability matters in state government. The committee seeks to ensure that public funds are expended for intended purposes and that programs and activities are effectively, efficiently, and economically managed. The committee accomplishes this mission by conducting public inquiries and directing the Office of Program Evaluation and Government Accountability, OPEGA, to conduct independent, objective reviews of state agencies and programs and other entities receiving public funds or expending private monies for public purposes. That does a really good job of explaining the role of the GOC, as well as defining the universe of things that OPEGA may review. We also have our own mission statement, and that can be found on the lower half of that same green sheet. Our mission statement is, with a focus on effectiveness, efficiency, accountability, and economical use of resources, OPEGA conducts independent, objective reviews of state agencies, programs, and activities to support the legislature in monitoring and improving the performance of state government. I'm going to need a quick sip of water. This next slide's a doozy. The pink sheet behind tab 2 summarizes the various roles and responsibilities of the OPEGA director and the GOC. Some are prescribed in statute, others have been adopted over time. I'll walk through the ones that have been prescribed in statute first, with some additional commentary now and then. The OPEGA director is required to hire and lead OPEGA staff, prepare and present a biennial budget, prepare and present an annual work plan. The director can hire consultants as necessary. This actually has its own line in our budget and has been used in the past when parts of a review require skills beyond the expertise in the office. So we have that authority to hire consultants to provide you ultimately with the information or answers you've asked us for. We conduct program evaluations and reviews. As part of that process, we provide the agency we're working with an opportunity to discuss potential findings and recommendations, and we let them review and respond to our work prior to its presentation to you. So their response, which is normally in the form of a letter, is included and printed in the report. We notify this committee when a report is complete. You'll receive a copy of the report prior to its presentation at a GOC meeting. It's important to note that while the report is in your hands prior to the presentation, it's confidential, should not be shared or discussed with others. The report becomes public when it is presented to the GOC, and then it's released to everyone. The director ensures the confidentiality of review work papers and draft reports. This is different from a policy committee where once an LD is disposed of, that file and all work papers related to that file become public documents. So for work papers that we use in the course of our reviews, whether that be information or data we've collected or interview write-ups, these are confidential and always remain confidential. There are a couple of really good reasons for that. One is because sometimes the information we receive is sensitive or personally identifying. And the other reason is that it allows the staff at an agency that we're reviewing to feel comfortable that they can share information with us and not be identified or subject to possible retribution. The draft reports, those are also confidential. The agencies we review do see reports in draft form, but they're obligated to keep these confidential as well. I had mention that you'll receive a copy of the report in advance of the presentation. And we do this because sometimes our reports can be long and complicated, and we want you to be as prepared as possible for that presentation. We'll always try to make it clear that you aren't to share, distribute, or discuss the contents of the report until after its presentation. The director is also required to prepare an annual report of OPEGA activities. The 2020 report is being edited now, and we can present that at a future meeting. That report will include things like summaries of reports completed during the year, any actions taken on past year's reports, descriptions of how we supported the GOC and other legislative efforts, our budget, our expenditures, and notable achievements in general. So those are the statutory responsibilities of the OPEGA director. And statute also prescribes the roles and responsibilities of the GOC as well. These are to direct OPEGA to conduct program evaluations, to review and approve our annual work plan and biennial budget. Both of these should be sometime in March, so those will be coming up soon. To request the services of the state auditor when you determine that necessary. I can't actually remember this ever happening, and I checked with Beth, our first director, and she couldn't think of a case where this has happened. But I guess it could occur if the GOC felt a review topic was within the state auditor's area of expertise, or felt that there was a need to have the work done by a CPA. And there are probably a few ways in which they could consult or work on something with us. Another responsibility of yours is to conduct hearings, to receive our reports and question public officials on the reports. You have the authority to examine witnesses, issue subpoenas, and administer oaths. You're required to adopt committee rules, which we'll get to later in this meeting, and a mission statement, and which has already been done. You conduct the meetings. You're also required to establish an immediate review system, which we'll talk about a little more later as it's already established. It's called our rapid response process. And you vote on whether to endorse OPEGA reports. This is going to have its own slide later on, but statute says that you can endorse a report in full, in part, or not at all. And then there are some additional roles and responsibilities that have been picked up by either the OPEGA director or the GOC as a result of different policies or processes. And I won't discuss all these, but there are two that I wanted to highlight. One being that the director builds strong relationships with this committee, the legislature, and the agencies we review. For the agencies we work with, we try to develop a cordial but not cozy relationship where we maintain our objectivity. To develop those relationships, we try to have regularly scheduled meetings. We try to work with them and consider their feedback when finalizing issues and possible potential recommendations. And hopefully, as a result, the agency will be more receptive of our recommendations. And the second thing was, it's the role of the GOC to select review topics and approve the scope of those reviews. That's a very important process that we're going to talk about shortly. So that's really the overview of who you are, who we are, and our various roles and responsibilities. Although we're going to get into greater detail for some of these things, are there any questions thus far? My view is obscured. I can't really see everyone. Good?
I think we're good, Matt.
Perfect. One of the primary things that the GOC does is to select the reviews that we perform, and we can walk through that process using the flow chart behind tab 3. And that should be on the next slide as well. When I went through the GOC's mission statement, I mentioned that it represented the evaluation universe, and that really has two factors: the agency or program that we'll be reviewing, and then the subject matter of the review. Generally, we're reviewing state agencies and programs, but there are other entities that we may review, such as quasi-governmentals, municipalities, even contractors, with the general guidelines being that you either receive state funding or you're serving a public purpose. The subject matter or subject area of a review generally needs to represent an issue of broad importance or a systemic issue rather than an individual's complaint or issue. And then the overlap of those two factors frames that evaluation universe. That's at the top of the sheet. So suggestions for review within that universe, they come from 3 primary sources. Some are going to come from us, and we present those to you on a periodic basis. Some will come from other legislative committees. That's typically in the form of a letter, or even different branches of government. And some come through the public, although these require a legislative sponsor, and we'll get to that in a bit. Often when the suggestions are brought to you, we'll provide some basic research to help you as you're considering whether or not to put it on the work plan. And then when the suggestion or review request comes to you, there's a few different decisions you can make. If it's something you just aren't interested in at this time, or you feel that there's a more appropriate avenue than an OPEGA review, you can vote to take no action on it and it goes away, or you can refer it to another entity. If it's something you think you may want to do, but it isn't a high priority, you can vote it onto the on deck or standby list. At some point in the future, the GOC, whether it's this one or a future one, can take a look at it again and potentially move it onto the work plan. If it's something you want to do, you can vote it directly onto the work plan. We'll talk a little bit more about the work plan in a minute. And sometimes there may be things that you not only want to put on the work plan, but also make our priority. And that's a rapid response review, which requires a 2/3 vote of the committee. And a rapid response review would become our top priority, and we would begin working on it immediately. And sometimes you may just find that you don't have enough information to make a decision. When that happens, you can ask us to get some more information, and we'll bring that back to you at a later meeting, and then you can decide what you'd like to do with the request. For the things that for the things that find their way onto the work plan, the director will assign resources and coordinate the scheduling of the review. Sometimes the committee can indicate something is a priority without making it a rapid review, and we're able to accommodate that. That's pretty much the high-level description of the flow chart, and I'll talk more about the review selection process on the next couple of pages in your notebook. Were there any questions for that? We're good? So following the flow chart in the same tab is our review selection process. And for our standard process, this isn't the rapid response process. The director will work with the GOC, usually at the beginning of the biennium, typically sometime in March, to identify topics within the evaluation universe that you would want to hopefully review in the next 2 years. In doing that, there are 3 groups of topics to consider: those already on the work plan, those already on the on-deck list, and then any new topics being brought forward. And also in looking at these topics, you'll also need to think of the general scope for each. For example, for MCILS, or the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services, the general scope wasn't the entirety of the commission, but rather just the effectiveness of financial oversight. You'll then prioritize the reviews, and there's a checklist to help you with that on the gray sheet in this tab, although you often don't need it. And then you vote which ones will be placed on OPEGA's work plan. The work plan itself, that's a living document. Over time, you can add or remove reviews, but this will be the starting point for this biennium. On a quarterly basis, the GOC will consider new requests that OPEGA's received, and there's an established process that we follow for that, which is on the buff sheet in this same tab. And we'll get into that in a moment also. At any time, the GOC may consider requests from other legislative committees, and at any time, any GOC member may introduce a topic for consideration. But the GOC is typically required that members submit a formal written request. If you have a topic that you'd like to pursue, I would encourage you to contact the office, and we'll put you in touch with Scott Farwell, and he can work with you to craft that request. Once something's on the work plan, or even the on-deck list, the director will notify the responsible agency's management. Then, as resources allow, and I say that because we're probably working already on existing reviews, the director will assign staff and schedule the review. We do the work, and that work is performed in accordance with our established process, which is outlined on the blue sheet, and we'll also get to that in a moment. Periodically, you'll review our progress on the work plan, as well as the potential value of reviews that we haven't started yet, and consider making changes to the work plan. On the back side of the OPEGA review selection sheet is the rapid response process, and I'll walk through that. This is a process for those situations where there's a suspicion of intentional wrongdoing or unintentional mismanagement and neglect. When these things come up, you may ask us to do some preliminary work to determine whether the suspicion is justified. And when you're considering whether a rapid response is appropriate, there are some established criteria. It should be within our jurisdiction. There should be corroborating information. You should consider whether there's the potential for a significant financial impact, whether there's a high degree of legislative or public interest or urgency, and whether there are a lack of avenues to get information or receive a timely response. Initiating a rapid review requires a 2/3 vote. If that's initiated, the director makes all the appropriate notifications, and we start that work as soon as possible.
Matt, for the benefit of the new members on the committee, can you talk a little bit about the last rapid response process we initiated?
I'm trying to think what that would be right at the top of my head.
I recall it was around Child Protective Services.
Yes. In response to, there were 2 child deaths, the GOC, and I think this is under the legislative or public interest and urgency bullet, directed us to undertake a rapid response process. We put everything down, and we focused on that with the idea that we turn that around as fast as possible. So that's one time that we have done that recently, with those two cases, and we did a case study of those two scenarios. And I can't remember when that was, 2019, I think.
That was a case where there was significant media coverage over the murders of those two young people. A number of legislators approached the GOC committee and asked that we use the resources of OPEGA to dive in and try to help understand the breakdown that allowed those two murders to occur. So I think that was the most recent example of a rapid response process that we conducted.
And I should note that the GOC also can indicate to us that something is a priority, and we can reflect that in our work plan without making it a rapid response. So there have been other times when something feels as though there's a sense of urgency around it, and then we can shift more resources into that project. I know I've thrown a lot at you. Are there any questions related to these processes? No? The next sheet in that same tab is that checklist I mentioned for prioritizing topics. I think I've only seen that used a couple of times, and one in particular when the on deck list had like 20 topics on it. And it was a way for the committee to sort its way through that. Behind that is this yellowish sheet, and that outlines the review request policy and procedures, and I'll walk through those over the next few slides. For an OPEGA review request to be considered by the GOC, it needs to be initiated or sponsored by a legislator. It needs to be in writing, either on the review request form, which is available online, or in a letter containing similar information. It also needs to be within our evaluation universe. And the topic or underlying issue that's brought to us should really be a systemic or a broad concern rather than an individual's particular issue. Anyone can request an OPEGA review, and quite often members of the public reach out to the office directly, and we'll work with them to better define their request and determine whether it's something we can do or if there are more appropriate avenues. If it's an appropriate topic for an OPEGA review, we'll help the requester identify their local legislators or legislators on relevant committees to potentially sponsor the request. And if a legislator is willing to sponsor a request, they must contact us and indicate that. If the requester can't find a sponsor, the director at their discretion may bring that request to the GOC chairs to potentially sponsor it. At least quarterly, we try to bring those sponsored requests to you, and you can process them as you would any other request. I did want to note that if a request is outside of our evaluation universe, or much more commonly, an individual's complaint or concern, we do our absolute best to refer them to the most appropriate agency to help them with that issue. And we're also logging those requests. If we were to see a trend or theme emerging, out of those logged requests, we would bring that to you for your consideration. When I went back and listened to the orientation for the 129th GOC, Danielle brought up some things related to confidentiality and review requests. I'm not an expert in confidentiality or FOA matters, but I wanted to make sure I brought up the same points. Any discussions we have with legislators prior to a request being made are confidential. after a formal request is made, legislators should not expect that their request or identity will remain confidential. Citizens or agency employees requesting a review can ask that their identity be kept confidential, and we would do that. Documents submitted to us as part of a review are treated as confidential work papers and aren't subject to FOA. However, documents shared from a requester to a legislator could potentially be subject to FOA. Are there any questions related to that?
Questions from the committee on this point? So Matt, if a constituent is contacting us regarding an investigation, any documents that the constituent sends to us would be subject to FOA. However, if we direct them to send documents directly to OPEGA staff, those could remain confidential. Is that an accurate?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Yeah.
So on the blue sheet in the same tab, so once you've established a work plan for us, and that should really be the result of all the processes we've just talked about, the standard selection process, the rapid review process, the new requests. We need to begin our work. And this blue and the purple sheet cover our work process and your work that occurs after the report is presented, which is important as at the next meeting, you'll be picking up in the middle of this process. I'd like to walk through those with you at a high level, but I won't necessarily be following these sheets to the letter. So once the topic is approved and on the work plan, we'll get to it as we finish current projects and as resources allow. Our work begins with preliminary research where we're trying to get a really good understanding of the agency. And some things we'll try to understand are the purpose of the program or agency, how the program or agency is currently administered, whether it's subject to any statutory requirements, the types of existing controls in place, the availability of data, and legislators' areas of concern. As part of this work, we almost always we email the relevant policy committee members and the GOC members and sort of solicit whether there are any areas of concern that they hold. As a project team, we'll process all that information in a risk assessment to identify potential scope questions that are relevant, valuable, and things that can actually be answered. Once we've settled on our recommended scope questions, we bring them to you. We provide you with a project direction document that contains background information, a description of how the agency or program works, and our recommended scope questions. This will be a presentation to the GOC as well as a written document. The GOC then can approve the scope questions as is, or amend them, add questions or delete questions. Right now, it's probably a good point to point out that when approving scope questions, if the timeliness of our results is going to be important, it may be important to prioritize what you absolutely need to know. Although it depends on what the actual questions are, generally, either fewer questions or narrowly focused questions will have a faster turnaround time. For example, for MCILS, again, the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services, we brought forward 5 scope questions that were approved by the committee, and all 5 were good questions. The GOC received letters from the commission itself, and I believe the Judiciary Committee, wanting certain aspects of that, wanting the GOC to prioritize the review so they could get the results sooner. and the results that they seemed interested in were really in two areas. We ended up proposing to split the review into two phases, with 2 questions in the first phase and 3 in the second. We were able to turn around the first 2 questions quite quickly, and that was on pace, I think, to be presented in March. But then COVID happened and we weren't able to present the report until November. We're now working on the second part of that MCILS review. That smaller scope really helped us get that work done and almost reported out quickly. Once the scope questions are approved, we enter our fieldwork phase where we can employ a variety of methods to answer those specific scope questions. We obtain and analyze data, we can interview or survey staff or clients, we can review existing policies and procedures, we can observe current practices, we can perform file reviews, case studies, we test controls, and sometimes we compare the program or agency to those in other states or establish best practices. Once we've finalized our issues and recommendations, we'll draft the report. We always try to provide the agency with a courtesy draft, and they can make suggested edits or point out if we have mischaracterized anything. At our discretion, we can incorporate those. We finalize the draft and send it to the agency at least 15 days before its presentation to you. The agency reviews the draft and can comment on the report, usually in the form of a letter that becomes part of the report. Sometimes agencies even provide action plans that are linked to specific recommendations, and those would also be included in the report. Oh, and we provide you with an advance copy to prepare yourselves for the presentation. And all of those drafts are confidential. For the report presentation and next steps, this is really covered on the purple sheet. We present the report and you have the opportunity to ask us or the agency questions. Then you'll schedule a public comment period to take testimony from interested parties. And then after that, you'll hold work sessions, as many as necessary, to discuss the report, determine whether you'll take any action, and ultimately take a vote to endorse the report. Voting to endorse a report means that you find it credible, objectively derived, sufficiently relevant, complete with regard to the assigned scope, and that report recommendations are reasonable and appropriate for the issues identified. That said, you can certainly vote to not endorse the report or endorse in part if you feel that the report hasn't met that criteria. It's just important to remember that the vote to endorse the report is related to just the report and whether we answered the scope questions, and not an up or down vote on the program or agency. So when you take that vote, it'll be recorded in the meeting summary, and if someone dissents why they declined to endorse the report, that'll also be in the meeting summary, and those are all posted on our website. The last sheet in this tab is green, and it contains a description of performance auditing, which serves as the framework for much of what we do. If any of you are curious about performance auditing, this is a good place to start. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to contact us. Behind tab 4 are a couple of examples of what we bring to you to approve scope questions and parameters. I'm going to stop sharing. Something else. Bear with me while I get my screen moved around. Were there any questions thus far before I get into this next piece? We're good. All right. I only see you, Senator Libby. The first example is a project recommendation for the beverage container redemption program. It includes lots of background information about the program and then culminates with our recommendation to you on the project direction. And that's where the scope questions would appear. This is a good example of what you might get from us as you consider a project scope questions. So everything I've focused on today is related to the work that the GOC directly tasks us with. And that's what we'll be picking up with next meeting. But we also perform tax expenditure reviews as prescribed in statute. Title 3, Chapter 37 has a requirement that the GOC and OPEGA do reviews of the state's tax expenditures. And that's a pretty big universe of things. That process is largely laid out in statute, and you certainly have an important role in that. And similar to approving scope questions, you approve the parameters for a tax review. And that's the second example in this tab on the yellow sheets. And I had intended to cover the tax expenditure review process today, but I was feeling overwhelmed myself with the amount of information. And I've absolutely bombarded you with stuff for nearly 45 minutes. So I figured I'd cover it like Danielle did for the 129th and at a subsequent meeting. So we will do that orientation in the next 2 or 3 meetings. I think the last thing that I was supposed to mention was the OPEGA website, which provides our reports and our work plan, the request for review form, information on the GOC, including the mission statement, policies, and that statute. A GOC meeting section, which has information for the next meeting, meeting materials, all meeting minutes, and even archived audio going back to 2005. I think that's all I had for the orientation component.
Thank you, Matt. Are there questions or comments from committee members on anything that Matt has covered? Seeing none, I'd like us to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a review of committee rules and procedures, as well as a COVID addendum. And so that's behind tab 5 in your notebook. I do recall Etta sending out a revised version to us by email earlier this morning. Matt, if you could walk us through that and make sure to note the edits that were made to the document that was sent this morning.
I believe the only edit that that was necessary was a typo in a senator's name.
Great.
So that you should have received that email with that updated copy correcting that. These are the rules that have been sent down to committees from the presiding officers as model rules. There's also that COVID addendum you mentioned, which has been added for the purpose of holding electronic meetings. Very graciously, Danielle edited these to reflect the fact that we don't have public hearings for LDs in this committee. And these rules, other than the electronic meeting stuff, are the same as the GOCs in the 129th. You're probably all familiar with these by now, and I'm not particularly well versed in committee rules, but I'll hit the high points that may be different because of COVID. Under number 2, a quorum requires 7 members. Under the COVID addendum, a member is considered present when in attendance using Zoom and when they are visually verifiable. You'd mentioned that earlier. So both on Zoom and visually verifiable. This means if you're actually in the committee room, you still have to be on the Zoom platform to be present. As said, if you want to turn your camera off, you want to have a meatball sub, that's fine. But for the purposes of establishing a quorum and for voting, you need to be visually verifiable. Under 9E, and sort of related to that, if you were absent, you have until noon on the second business day following the vote to register your vote. And last I knew, there's potentially a process being created for that. But for now, we'll do as Senator Libby described and register that with your presiding officer. Under number 6, I believe the GOC has amended the eating restriction in the past as they sometimes work through lunch. But where this committee isn't really physically present here, this doesn't have to be discussed now, but the chairs may want to revisit this when we're all back in the building. And under number 7 and 8, for public hearings and work sessions, questions are addressed through the chair as always. And at the beginning of the meeting, Senator Libby covered how that should occur. I think that was the high points that I wanted to mention.
So I'd like to have the committee review the draft rules, and if folks are prepared, it would be good to, I think, to take a vote to adopt these rules. Obviously, we are very willing to hear from committee members on suggested edits, and now would be a good time as any to get those out on the floor. Are there any questions or comments on the suggested committee rules? Representative Millett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on your opening comments and Matt's assurance that these resemble the rules for the 129th with only the virtual pieces asterisk, and with the understanding that we can revisit them if and when we return to the real world, I am comfortable with them and would support their adoption.
Is that a motion, Representative Millett?
I would make that as a motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Millett. It's a motion made by Representative Millett, and it was seconded by Representative Dillingham to adopt the committee rules as presented, with the understanding that the committee may revisit them as our the logistics around meeting evolve over time. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, this is an item where we will need to do a roll call vote. So I'll turn it over to Matt, who will facilitate that vote for us.
Senator Libby?
Yes.
Senator Libby, yes. Senator Bailey?
Yes.
Senator Vitelli, absent. Senator Keim? Is she there?
I think for the purposes of the vote, we have to count her as absent.
I had to change my view. I apologize. Senator Timberlake? Absent. Senator Bennett? Absent. Representative McDonald?
Yay.
Representative O'Neill?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Representative Dillingham.
Yes.
Representative Dillingham, yes. Representative Millet.
Yes.
Representative Millet. Representative Millet, yes. Representative Arata.
Yes.
Representative Arata, yes.
It appears the vote is unanimous of those present. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is behind tab number 6. Tab number 6 in your binder, report from director. Interim director.
Just a little longer.
Matt, you're doing a great job. We understand you're doing 2 jobs, and we definitely appreciate all that you've got balancing on your plate right now.
I appreciate that. I just do each job half as well. So this is the work plan as of today. You'll get an updated work plan every meeting. The director will let you know what's changed, if anything. The first section are the approved projects, which the GOC has directed us to conduct reviews on. And sometimes it's helpful to look at the OPEGA phase column to have an idea of where these are at. I'll walk through each of these and give you the update. The main citizen initiative process, this is in the late stages of field work, and some drafting has started. We expect to report out on this in the next few months. Child Protective Services out-of-home placements. This is currently in preliminary research, and this is a little strange. We began this preliminary research in 2019. At that time, OCFS was beginning a new strategic plan, and we recommended to the 129th GOC that we extend preliminary research for 1 year to allow them time for that strategic plan to be implemented. While we've waited, we've collected data and metrics from OCFS. We expect to analyze that data and provide you with more information in the next couple of months, so you can determine what actions you may want to take or you want us to take. The Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services, we completed phase 1 of the MCILS evaluation and reported out to the GOC in November. So there is still some work for that to be done, and that's largely on the committee. And I'll get to that in a moment. The second part of the evaluation, phase 2, the remaining 3 questions, is currently in the fieldwork phase. Follow-up survey of OCFS frontline workers. In early 2019, we conducted a survey of child protective workers. The GOC was interested in resurveying these same workers, and we're in the planning phase of a follow-up survey, but we haven't really started that in earnest yet. Pine Tree Development Zone was a special project assigned by the GOC following a tax expenditure review. This was reported out in November, and there is still some work to be done with that, and I'll get to that in a moment. The seed capital investment tax credit, that's one of our full tax expenditure evaluations. It is currently in the fieldwork phase, and we hope to have this done in the fall. These haven't historically been included on this sheet, but the proposed parameters for 2 full tax evaluations, the research expense tax credit and the rehabilitation of historic properties tax credit, are in progress, and we expect to have these to you in late spring. The second section of the work plan is it's labeled approved pending planning. These are project topics that the GOC has voted onto the work plan, but we haven't started at all yet. The third section is projects that have been recently completed or closed. And then this last section labeled standby list. I believe we were transitioning away from the phrase on deck list, but this section represents the on deck list that I described when we went through the review selection process flowchart. So in addition to the work plan items, I have some updates on some stuff that was started with the 129th GOC. MCILS Phase 1, that was presented to the GOC in November, and the GOC drafted a memo to this iteration of the committee, and that'll be provided for you at the public comment period, which needs to happen, and then following that, committee work sessions as necessary. The Pine Tree Development Zone Special Project was presented to the GOC in November. The public comment period and work sessions for that need to happen as well. Those November meetings were packed. We were really under the gun to get those 2 reports out. So a new request regarding the Wild Blueberry Commission that came from several legislators from down East Maine wasn't taken up, and that also needs to happen. Lastly, Danielle had also brought the GOC a proposed amendment to statute governing the confidentiality of OPEGA working papers. It's actually in the meeting minutes section of your notebook. It's at the back. I'm leaving that for Lucia to decide whether she wants to bring that to you this session, and then you could potentially decide whether you want to put that legislation forward. Does anyone have any questions for me on any of these items?
I saw Senator Khan, followed by Representative O'Neill.
Yeah, sorry, I took a call and missed the vote. If you already discussed it, and I can catch up with another member later, but what is the question around the Wild Blueberry Commission?
I apologize. I don't have that in front of me at the moment. Hey, Scott, are you listening? Can you bring that over? He's pretty fast. We'll see. I can't remember. It came in November, and it has really been sort of sitting in a parking lot until we got the committee back together and get oriented, and then this second meeting out of the way.
Okay.
But that is certainly due. Normally, when something comes from legislators, it is taken up as it comes in.
Maybe Senator Khan, we can wait for the staff to get that shipped over to Matt. I'll call in Representative O'Neill, and then we can come back to this one. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had the same question as to whether it was printed in our materials, because I didn't see it on the agenda anywhere.
No, I don't believe it's been. Thank you.
That was quick.
Fast. It hasn't. We haven't brought it forward because normally when we bring something forward, we have the request and we do some background information, some preliminary research to help you sort of sort through that, and we present it to you. We have not yet scheduled that, so you won't see that in these meeting materials. The second the chairs put it on the agenda, it'll be in that meeting's materials, and it should have, in addition to that, yes, this came from 6 legislators. They were looking for a formal request of the Wild Blueberry Commission, its stewardship of state blueberry taxes earmarked for marketing in its relationship to an industry marketing group, Wild Blueberries of North America. And they had several key questions listed here that could potentially be scope questions. Where is the blueberry tax money going? Is the relationship between the industry, Wild Blueberry Commission, and this other organization transparent? And then who provides oversight of both the Wild Blueberry Commission and the Wild Blueberries of North America? And is oversight adequate? Once that's on the agenda, we'll send that along to you, and we'll get that presented, and we may be able to provide a little more background on whether those proposed questions are doable or what we'd use for a general scope.
And Matt, will we invite the signatories of that letter to that meeting when the letter first appears on our agenda?
Absolutely. We always have the sponsor show up. In this case, I'm not sure how many will show up or whether it'll be all of them. Actually, I think I had Scott check, and I think they all are back. So we would notify the sponsor and have them there to speak to it.
One thing for the committee to keep in mind as we're regularly reviewing the work plan and entertaining new requests for investigations is how we strike the right balance of new cases to take up, because the staff do have a number of projects that they are working on. The Blueberry Commission letter is the most recent request that I've been made aware of. I expect there will be other requests in the spring. And so when we are considering, for example, pushing the OPEGA staff to take up, the substance abuse treatment program request that is on our work plan, that request is 11 years old. And I don't really know if any GOC members here now were on GOC back then to really have a sense of the nature of that request and the background that brought it to us. And so that's all to say, we do have to, I think, take care in deciding which projects we decide to prioritize for the OPEGA staff.
Yep, that is certainly a balance, and for you to consider. At one point, this committee is actually lucky. I've seen that on deck list have to be 20 things long that were 8 years old. So when we have the annual work plan discussion, which again should land in March, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to provide you with updates on a lot of the things and the statuses of the projects. You can consider that their relative merits and develop this committee's work plan.
Questions or comments from the committee on this? Seeing none.
Senator Libby?
Yes, Matt.
We've got some people who popped back onto my screen. That was my first roll call vote. Can we get them while they're here and on screen?
I'd look to the parliamentarians of GOC. I believe we'd have to move reconsideration because it was a roll call vote. I don't know that we could add a vote outside of that procedure.
Okay, if you
I believe you closed the vote, so you would have to reconsider.
Okay.
I am happy to entertain a reconsideration motion if folks want to turn their cameras on. We could redo that vote.
Chairman, I would move to reconsider the vote on the adoption of the committee rules.
And I will second that.
Representative Millet has moved reconsideration whereby we adopted committee rules for the 130th GOC, seconded by Representative McDonald. All in favor of reconsideration, please raise your hands. All opposed? Votes unanimous of those present. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the committee rules as presented.
So moved.
I'm up.
Motion to adopt committee rules as presented, made by Representative Dillingham, seconded by Representative O'Neill. Any discussion? Seeing none. Matt, will you call the roll?
Senator Libby?
Yes.
Senator Libby, yes. Senator Bailey?
Yes.
Senator Bailey, yes. Senator Vitelli, absent. Senator Keim?
Yes.
Senator Keim, yes. Senator Timberlake?
Yes.
Senator Bennett?
Yes.
Senator Bennett, yes. Representative McDonald?
Yay.
Senator McDonald, yay. Representative O'Neill?
Yes.
Representative O'Neill, yes. Representative Stover?
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Representative Dillingham,
Yes.
Representative Millet,
Yes.
Representative Millet, yes. Representative Arata,
Yes.
Representative Arata, yes. Thank you.
Motion carries. Matt, anything else under agenda item number 6?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is unfinished business, and we have nothing in that section. However, I did want to offer the floor to members of the committee if there are, for returning members, matters of unfinished business you want to flag for us here now. Seeing none, we'll move up to the next item, which is planning for upcoming meetings. So I did want to let the committee know that OPEGA's analysis of the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services Phase 1 work is getting us to the point of the public comment period. So we will be hosting that public comment period at our next scheduled meeting of the GOC. This will be our first time soliciting public comment in the virtual format, the completely virtual format. But the staff have worked with the chairs and the IT folks to make sure that this process runs as smoothly as possible. I did want to provide some information about how that process is going to go. Like today's meeting, anyone who wants to watch or listen that public comment period, but not necessarily testify, they're welcome to do so either using the YouTube channel for GOC, or they can stream the legislature's streaming audio from the legislature's website. If anyone wants to submit written testimony, but again, not necessarily testify, they can send that testimony to EDA for inclusion in our meeting materials. We have invited the interested parties at the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services to attend this meeting. Those invitations, I believe, went out to the co-chairs of the commission. We've extended an offer for them to be present and participate and include any staff members that they wish to be present as well. Of course, we expect other interested parties outside of MCILS to join us in that conversation. If someone wants to testify, they will need to register for the Zoom webinar and send any written materials to EDA. We are asking that only those wishing to testify register for the webinar to make it easier for us during that session to identify who we've called upon and who we've not called upon. If members of the public are interested in watching our proceedings but are not planning to testify, we would ask them to view our work either on the YouTube channel or through the legislature's audio stream. As members, as well as any invited guests, we will serve as panelists in the Zoom program and have functionality similar to today. Members of the public who register will receive an attendee invite or a dial-in number, but will not have functionality as an attendee per se. We will promote attendees to panelists one by one to give their testimony and then change them back to attendees when they are finished. And the members have no further questions for them. Then we'll move on to the next person. For any member of the public who wishes to participate in any of these ways, all necessary instructions, links, and contact information will be posted on OPEGA's website under GOC Meetings webpage. So for members, interested parties, the public, constituents, and whomever, the information that you'll need or information that may be helpful for you to access our meetings will be hosted on that page for GOC Meetings on the OPEGA website. And of course, our staff are very happy to answer any questions that any member of the public has about how this will go. Contact information is on that website. Any questions on that subject? Questions or comments? Seeing none, the next meeting of the GOC will be 2 weeks from today, Friday, February 12th at 9 a.m. And we're headed towards an adjournment vote. So we just want to see if there are any other comments or questions before we sign off for this morning. Senator Khan.
Thank you. Some people have been on the committee have been following our review of MCILS, and I was just wondering, when will we be having a discussion on sort of phase 2 of that? Will the next meeting be a public hearing, and then following that we'll talk about phase 2, or will it be just after the public hearing next committee, or is that not something you guys have talked about?
It's a great question, Senator Khan. Typically, we will have a public hearing, which is followed by a work session, similar to the policy committees. And the work session is really that opportunity for the committee to discuss our next steps. I admit we have talked about doing a work session on the same day, but also doing it the following 2 weeks because we have some other public hearings coming up. I'm going to look to Matt to remind me and us of what we were planning on.
We were planning on the public comment period, closing it that same day and then moving into work session. I did just want to clarify for Senator Kime, when you say phase 2, are you talking about the actual, what we've been calling phase 2, the remaining 3 questions, or what happens as a result of phase 1?
I guess both, actually. Yeah. So
Okay.
so we might discuss the whole report in a work session after we close out the public hearing on February 12th.
Yes, and any actions you want us to take or you would like to take and figure out the committee's direction from there. And I can certainly provide you with an update of where we're at with the phase 2 questions.
Further questions or comments? Last call. Representative Millett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment. I wanted to commend you on your handling of the meeting. I suspect it comes from your Bates College education. I'm hoping that our Senate chair, our House chair, will have an opportunity to comment and be participating as we get into these YouTube hearings. We in appropriations, and there are 4 of us on the group, have been doing this all week. It's a delicate function, and it takes a lot of teamwork between the 2 chairs, and I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for your openness and the way in which you conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Representative Millett. I should disclose there's a 3rd Bates College graduate who's a member of this committee, and I don't know if I'll out that member right now, but our numbers are growing. And to your point, Representative McDonald is a very capable co-chair. There will be, I think, opportunities for Representative McDonald to lead our work, particularly when both of us are raising a young family. There may be times where I step back, Representative McDonald steps up, and vice versa. But well said, and I appreciate the comments.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate that as well. And thank you, Senator. This is my first time chairing a meeting. So I did request of my Senate chair to help show me how it's done. So I look forward in the future to participating more, and we'll take it as it comes.
Further comments? Seeing none, I believe a motion, sorry, Representative Dillingham?
Just because you kept asking for further comments, I'll just say that I look forward to working with everyone over the next 2 years.
Thumbs up from Senator Timberlake. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn made by Representative Stover, seconded by Senator Bennett. All is in favor? It's unanimous. Thanks very much, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.